Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Genres of People. This is a weekly online series where we are chatting with local community members who have diverged and contributed to the wonderful community of Guelph. We talk to these about where they came from, how they got to where they are, and much more. And this week we've got Paul Barson, member of the Downtown Theater Project, and member of the Vanishers. Am I missing anything else that you're?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much sums up my day-to-day. Yeah, that's pretty good. Thanks for having me here, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Onyx and Sound Events. This is great.
Yeah, it's so we've been doing this for a little while, and it's great having you. So I want to start off by, I think there was a little while where online your Facebook name was Andrew Paul Crispin or Andrew something or other, and I think I've called you Andrew a couple times in public. So I'm sorry.
It's funny how Facebook takes over your identity. Like
it really does.
Yeah, I'm still Paul just because Facebook says one thing. Yeah.
So I often also see you around downtown with your wife Jen and enjoying the sights of downtown and Guelph, and I always kind of just got this impression that you were from Guelph, native, born and raised. Is that true, or are you from elsewhere, or where are you from?
Yeah, so I've done my best to assimilate with the Guelph culture and try and fool everybody into thinking I'm a longtime Guelphie, but it's all a lie. No, I went to university here and left for a bit and then came back for work and then stayed, and that's I've had my kids here, and all of the things I've enjoyed in life have pretty much started here. Yeah, so please accept me.
I think you've been accepted. I don't know if I can, be the one to necessarily be like, yes, you're accepted.
No, actually, we voted. You speak for the entire town. Yeah.
So I guess like most of my connections with a lot of people downtown, it's largely through music or something to that effect. But I'm always really fascinated to find out what people are doing aside from just music, because it is always you're wearing multiple hats and you have another job and all that sort of stuff. So you went to University of Guelph for, what is it?
I went to University of Guelph for geography.
Okay.
And then I did a postgrad in Sir Sandford Fleming and did GIS, Geographic Information Systems.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to be able to remember that.
No.
I was trying to kind of be like, find a way to remember that.
Yeah, it's basically a technical way of saying computer mapping, digital mapping.
So with that, how, if any way, does your day-to-day job cross over with, being a screenwriter, actor, singer, everything that you do in your, I guess, other side of your life?
That's a good question. Technically, on the skill set level, there isn't a whole lot that crosses over. As a producer for the Downtown Theater Project, I get into doing some kind of graphic stuff, some graphic design stuff. It kind of in a small amount, and doing mapping. I create physical maps in my job, so I've got to employ some graphic design skills as well. But that's pretty much as far as it goes technically. But the important thing to me when it comes to either making maps for the people I work with, or telling stories with the Downtown Theater Project, or writing a song, it's always about the story. So when I'm creating maps at work, I'm getting a data set and I've got to lay it out on a map of Wellington County. And, for example, I just did one recently of fire incidents in Guelph Hermosa. And so, we look at the data doesn't lie, but the map can, or at least kind of tell a story, whatever story you want. So if you want to show how bad it is, we can show how bad it is. If you want to show that it's not so bad, we can show that it's not so bad with the exact same data set.
Yeah.
So, it's very important to know the story before kind of producing the product. And it's no different when we do the Downtown Theater Project. We have what story do we want to tell? There's a script, we got all these actors, and what do we want to say to our audience? And the same thing when I'm writing a song. It's all about the story. Yeah. That's
a really interesting way to put it, as far as the convergence between the two, of how they can kind of both intermingle. Yeah. It's I'm constantly thinking about what are we trying to tell with this? Yeah. What do we want the audience to get out of this? Yeah. So getting a little more into the background, I guess, and into some of your maybe family background, did you grow up in like a musical family, a theatrical family, or was it just sort of like you were encouraged to pursue your dreams no matter what they were?
The latter, definitely. Yeah, I came from a nice household where mom and dad were very supportive. But in terms of theatrical and musical, my mom's a singer and she sang all the time, kind of sang like, you know, if we put on our coat, she'd sing a song about us putting on our coat, that kind of thing. And now I'm doing that to my kids, so
Of course.
come by it honestly.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of like structured theatrical or musical things going on in my house. Just kind of casual. Mom was in a choir once and things like that. But my grandfather, my mom's dad, he was just a performer. He didn't get paid to perform, but he sang, he wrote songs, he acted for us all the time when we were kids. He actually had this thing that he would pull out at parties, and it was called Jake the Peg with the Extra Leg. And he built this costume for himself where it was a suit with the kind of the false arm was pinned in, so his left arm would go down into the third leg of the thing, and he'd do this like dancing thing where he'd kick his legs, and we thought it was the greatest thing on the planet. So I'm going to say that I am a performer now, because back then when I was 6 years old, I watched my grandpa kicking his legs up and I thought, I'm going to do that someday. But I don't know that. I don't know if that's true.
Find a way to make that happen. Entertain the people.
I'm close. I'm getting closer.
So we'll touch on the theater aspect a little bit more, but I wanted to talk as well, because you're in a band. What were some sort of musical influences for you growing up, and were any of those sort of leading you more towards the singing side, or what influences did you have growing up?
First, it was Sharon, Lois, and Bram. Still is. Hardcore Sharon, Lois, and Bram fan. No, I didn't really have a lot of interest, or I didn't connect with a lot of musical acts that were surrounding me when I was younger. My older brother was hardcore into like 80s metal, so like Rat and Motley Crue and Twisted Sister. There was posters all over his room. And Mom was into Anne Murray and Anna Muscuri and ABBA and, you know. Barbra Streisand, for sure. So can't say I really connected with any of those. And it wasn't until a little bit later that I heard the song Pictures of You by The Cure on the radio, and I went and picked up Disintegration by The Cure. And then probably for the next 2 years of my life, I listened to nothing. Like, I listened to nothing. Like, I didn't listen to people talking to me or anything. I just listened to The Cure for 2 years straight. I started teasing my hair to look like Robert Smith. I was, like, really, really unnecessarily into them. And then, you know, we kind of entered into the early days of the 90s, the grunge, you know, you couldn't escape Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins and all of that stuff, and I became huge fans of kind of the grunge scene back then. But The Cure never left, you know. It's still to this day, kind of the melodies and you know, nobody thinks that, oh, you learned to sing because of Robert Smith. You know, he's not known for his ability to sing, but his ability to put melodies together is unlike anyone else. So yeah. I've always been kind of taken by his skills on that front.
He was very influential, I think, for a big generation, and I remember kind of catching some of it, but not quite as much, I don't think. But there's always that band that, for whatever reason, just catches you, and just like, that's, you know, I like that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, yeah. You know, was I super depressed at the time? I don't know. I don't remember. I liked black. Maybe that was it.
It's like the now equivalent of the emo phase or something?
Yeah, exactly.
The parallel?
100%. Yeah. So, but he, whatever he was doing, it got me, and I'm still there. So
did that inspire like your current band at all, or other bands before, or is this just kind of a completely other project that you'd started in?
Yeah, I've been in bands since I was in my late teens, since Robert gave me the itch, but they were all kind of 90s semi-rock, or I don't even know what you call it back in the 90s.
Alt-rock of some kind.
Alt-rock, early alt-rock kind of thing. And yeah, I was definitely, my songwriting would have been influenced by that style. But that's a long time ago now. And I was in bands back in the day, and then I took a break, and then when I started thinking about getting back into it, there was this website, and I tried to find it, and I can't remember what it was, and maybe you guys will remember it, but it It was some sort of like 519 or 905.
The 519 board?
Was it 519
I
board?
think it might have been the 519 board. Run by,
Okay.
I think it was J-Cloth and Sellout and everything before for a while, but I think it was a 519 board.
Okay, and it was basically like ads for, I'm looking for a band, that kind of thing. And so I used to just answer all these postings for singers. Man, I had some experiences going out auditioning for bands.
I imagine that would be interesting.
Oh,
I do
yeah.
remember the 519 board. It was interesting.
But there was one. It was they wanted me to sing a couple Social Distortion tunes, and I was into Social Distortion at the time, so I thought that was cool. And Social Distortion was a little bit different than the rest of what was going on. So, and these guys they kind of had a bit of a country, like an old school country rockabilly edge to them. So I was into that. It wasn't like hardcore into the country realm. It was enough of a kind of a 90s alt rock / country.
So that little twang to it.
Yeah, with the twang in it. And so, I went and auditioned, sang a couple songs. They hired me, and that was in 2007.
And that was the formation of the Vanishers?
That was, they did exist prior. They had a singer, but they hadn't got any recordings or anything done at the time,
And since then, so you've recorded with the band, and you've put out a couple albums?
Yeah, we have 2 albums and a Christmas single.
Nice, gotta have the Christmas single. So I guess we had met at the Jazz quite a while ago. I think it was. Can you? I guess you told us about how the band got started, but how you've been together since 2007. Where are you guys at now? Like, are you still kind of jamming, or is it kind of off to the side and you're doing the more theater stuff, or?
Yeah, we've had a bit of a tumultuous time the last kind of 4 or 5 years. So I got cancer a while back. I don't know if you knew that, but
Didn't know that.
I don't spill that on too many people. And so it was in my neck area, so I had to stop and wasn't sure what was going to happen with me singing-wise. So I had some surgery, and then this was probably 2016, and so then I had my first surgery, and then Jen and I had twins, and then I had to go back and have some more surgery. And then, so that was pretty much like 2 years disappeared where we couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then 2 of the guys who are graphic designers and design people. I don't know. Sorry if I'm not calling you what your job is,
Or
but
illustrators or whatever.
yeah,
else
they're
it is.
things. They started this company called The Laundry Design out of Hamilton.
Okay.
They actually did all of the design for Lady Glazed Donuts, who now has a franchise here in
That's
Quebec,
really cool. That's a cool
on
connection.
Quebec Street.
Yeah.
And so they started that, and that was a massive time suck for them. Not suck, but you know what I mean. And so we're just kind of coming out of that now into the world where nothing can happen. So we're talking about what we're going to do next. We have a bunch of tunes pretty close to ready, even before I got sick. So, like, I think we're close to getting into a studio and getting some stuff done. And if there's a version of this lockdown or whatever this is where we can get into studios and get some recording done, then we probably will. I've recently seen some pictures from other friends that are in bands of them in studios, and I was like, all right, that's a thing we can do.
Yeah, there's been a couple, and a couple new studios popping up too. So.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Good.
But,
Yeah, so I think we'll probably get something done soon. Yeah.
That's good to hear. We'll have to get you on this stage then. at
Yes,
some point.
please.
Well, that's great. So you mentioned that you do have some recorded material, obviously the albums. Are they all available online? Do you have records as well? Can people buy your merchandise as well, like online or wherever?
We're typically really bad at this kind of stuff. Because we used to play a fair amount of gigs, we just kind of relied on kind of getting people to purchase our stuff post-show at all of our gigs. But now that those aren't happening, we should probably take more care into our online presence. But yeah, you can. We're on the 2 albums, so we have The Biggest Hand was 2009, and then 2011 was the Christmas single, Christmas Wish at the End of the Bar. And then Hagersville Dance Party was our next album, and that was in 2012. So all of those you can get on iTunes if not some of those other purchasey type things.
Or messaging you guys directly or something.
Or yeah, just send me an email and I'll hook you up. Yeah, we can, and we
The
have
old school way.
and because we have these great designers, and so prior to them doing the things like Lady Glaze, and they do other businesses in the Hamilton area, they were clothing designers, and so all our merch is kick-ass.
Yeah,
so,
that's a bonus right there.
Oh, massive bonus.
So
yeah, I feel like sometimes we're just a band so that they can make shirts.
Isn't that why anyone's a band? Those are just cool shirts. So do you do the songwriting in the band, or is it a collaborative effort, or how does that go about with you guys?
So myself and Paul McGrath, who's one of the guitarists, write all the lyrics for the songs. As far as my songwriting, typically I'd say I come with a fully structured and lyriced song to rehearsal, and then we'll flesh it out and they'll tell me to get rid of the parts that suck. And
it's always hard to take that criticism.
It is hard, yeah. But sometimes Gary, one of the guitarists, he's sending me stuff all the time, like riffs and sections of songs, and just so like I have like on my Google Drive, I have a folder just filled with tracks from him that I need to give some attention to. And so there's been a good number of songs that have been written that way, but yeah, typically for me, for structuring lyrics and structuring the story, it's hard if I'm not sitting there with my guitar and playing the song through over and over and over and over again. So it is a bit harder when I've got these snippets from him. Sometimes he sends me these great pieces, and I'm like, can you just send me the chords for that? And then I'll just play through it, and you can put that on later.
Yeah. I find the same thing as just finding that niche of what works between the online and receiving the tracks and then trying to write to them. So.
100%.
So do you find that now that you've been doing this for a while, do you find your songwriting has changed at all from writing stuff for the band now to more for your kids at all, or is that?
Yeah, I would say that like I'm not writing for the kids other than like it's time to eat food, that kind of stuff. They're 3, by the way. It's more so that I'm writing now from a perspective of someone who has kids. Before it was all about, we used to say all our songs are about women, alcohol, poker, and roadkill. Those were all our songs are about those 4 things.
Good topics.
Yeah. But now it's, I don't know, it's difficult to turn your eye away from what's going on in the world, especially now that I've like, this is your world. Have fun with it. It's like, sorry
about the tire fire.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So trying to, it's hard to just write a song about like getting drunk now. It's now I want to be like writing songs about like, why are you getting drunk? Like, go and fix something, So I'll honestly say that there's been a period where it's been difficult because the style of our music, which has this kind of southern rock, country, rockabilly kind of style to it, lends itself to some of the subject matter that we were, at least in my head it does. I'm sure maybe traditionally it does. I'm sure lots of people are doing cool, interesting things with that style. But like in my mind, I'm like, I feel locked into these certain subject matter when I'm writing that style of music. So now I'm just trying to like craft ways for me to be more honest about my reality in the world we live in and the kids and stuff like that without it being too juxtaposed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to look at it because it's a challenge, obviously, kind of approaching certain topics or being a part of the conversation without, taking over too much or listening or all those sort of things. So yeah, it's an interesting transition for sure.
Yeah, and every now and then when I write a song that doesn't fit it, I just like find another avenue for it. So I don't know if you know Greg Denton. Yeah, Greg Denton downtown. And myself and Jamie Rosen and Steven, I forget his last name, was on bass. And the 4 of us got together and we have this song. It's called We Want Change, but Not the Kind You Busk For. And so, we're in the midst of getting that recorded. So, it's not something that would fit in the Vanishers realm, but it's another project that allows me to keep going if the style's not quite right.
Yeah, totally. It's good to have those outlets too of other musicians just to collaborate
exactly.
with.
Yeah, and my wife and I, we call ourselves the Pantsuit Fridays, and we do 3 songs here, 4 songs there, kind of thing. But nothing major yet. What's that?
Anything recorded or?
Do we have anything recorded? Nothing except for in the phone, I think. Yeah. But we have 4 or 5 songs that we're kind of selecting musicians right now to get something done. Yeah,
that's great. Well, maybe some are watching right now, and you can recruit right here.
Is it wrong to give my phone number out? Yeah, probably.
So to touch, I guess, a little on the theater end of things, because you're very involved with the theater. I know you know Tim Clark, a friend of mine from high school, and I always really admired the passion and drive that he had for theater and everything that involved with his life, even that he's doing, and being able to kind of continue doing that. I feel like people from the theater world are all kind of cut from a similar cloth, and you go for it, and this is what you've always wanted to do. Now, is that the case for you, that you were kind of always knew that was somewhat in the cards of being in theater, because it does tie in music and all these other elements?
No, I don't think so. I was actually the kid in I don't know if you still have to do speeches in English class, but like when I was a kid, every English class you had to do a 10-minute speech. That was a part of the curriculum. It was 10% of your mark, or it wasn't a 10-minute speech. It was 10% of your mark. That's way too long. But I just was like, all right, I'm working from 90% this year because I'm not doing that. And it wasn't until I was in my last year of high school that I had some friends who were in theater, and they asked me to just play this role, and so, I dipped into it then, and then didn't do anything at all in my 20s at all. And then it was, I can actually remember I was watching one of Royal City Musical Productions' show at the Riverrun Center, and I was sitting with Anita McFarlane, who was on the board at the time, and she knew I was in a band. She had come to see the Vanishers play, so she just like leaned over and she was like, "We need more men. Please audition for one of our shows." And so, yeah, it was pretty late in life that I got into it. I was in my 30s, and I remember the audition. I went out, and the whole table of people there, and I have to sing a song, and they're all good friends of mine now, but at the time I didn't know them. And so I sang my song, and it was for Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates of Penzance was the show that they were putting on. And so I sang, and they were like, "Okay, that's pretty good." And then, like, the whole cast came in, so it was rehearsal, and so it was just like, all right, now I'm here for rehearsal. Yeah, so it wasn't even a part. It was, they had already cast the show, and they were still short men, and so
you were just in automatically.
I was in automatically. It was like they were listening to me sing just to be kind, but they didn't care. They just needed my flesh. Yeah.
So it is. I find with theater, it is a very daunting thing. It's something that I was intimidated by, I think, in high school. So it's interesting you bring that up, because it's something that it's a lot of fun when you're in it, but it's pretty intimidating to kind of get up there and just put yourself in that limelight.
Oh yeah, the anxiety involved with getting up there and doing it is equal to the thrill. It's probably the exact same part of your brain that's being used, but the energy you get from it when you love it and you do it as well as you can, you do it well. Yeah, there's not a lot of feelings like that. Yeah, and being in a band, performing in front of a live audience, it's pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally. Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit that when you got involved, but how long have you been involved with the Guelph theater scene?
So that was 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010, 9, something like that.
So this is, you don't have much experience then in other regions or anything like that, but have you done any like traveling shows, or have you experienced other theater groups in other regions or anything like that, or? Yeah, like all the theater, especially in this kind of tri-city or the greater GTA, we're all connected. Yeah. A lot of people who I've done shows with here in Guelph come from other jurisdictions and dip in just to do one show because it's a show they want to do. I am way more local than that. Like, I really like to just not have to drive too far. And so that's probably one of the reasons the Downtown Theater Project started, is because, we want things close and we want to be able to have some control, but we'll get to that. Yeah, I would say that just in discussions with people, the theater communities are very similar. The vast majority of it is volunteer-based. It's community theater, and so these are people who have
jobs like me all day and then want to perform, and so we carve time out of our lives to make that happen, because either we did it in high school or we're a guy and can sing in a band and they need us. But whatever it is, the talent is, some of the talent is on par with the shows that you'll go and see in Stratford and with the Drayton Festival. Like there's incredible talent in this town. They've just chosen that it's going to be their hobby instead of their career.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way, and I think it's a similar thing with musicians too. Is just you kind of have to, feels like you have to pick one or the other, and it always is. You have to do a day job, and then come and do theater or rehearsal or whatever else it is, and that's interesting, because I don't know a whole lot from the theater community aside from what I'll see from some posts or whatever else like that. But
I just flood your Facebook feed all
just
year.
Awful. Yeah. So you've been a part of a few productions. Do you have any favorites at all, or anything that kind of stick out and they're more memorable?
Well, you mentioned Tim Clark. Tim and I, so the last show I did before I went for my surgeries was we did Into the Woods. And Tim and I played the princes. So I was Cinderella's prince and he was Rapunzel's prince. And one of my favorite songs from musical theater is a song called Agony. It's basically these two douche princes singing about how they can't have, basically they want everything and they can't quite have everything, and it's just so agony. And so the two of us got to sing that together on stage at the Riverfront Center, and that was an absolute blast. And I did a play at Guelph Little Theatre called Calendar Girls, and there was a movie about it back in the early 90s probably. And it was the story about these women who were raising money for breast cancer, and so they did a topless calendar. It's a true story from a small town in England, and so there's a play about it, and so we put that on. And the best thing about that show was that I met so many incredible people. And so I met Trevor Smith-Diggins, who is one of the Downtown Theatre Project foursome, and just an talent in terms of directing and producing and play polishing. So it was a life-changing moment. Obviously, I met the incomparable Jen Barson there. But yeah, it was one of the most pivotal moments in my career.
That's a lot of connections all at once.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah.
So to touch, I guess, a little bit on other elements that you do, you're also a screenwriter and actor. Have a favorite role? Do you prefer being in front of the camera or behind, or?
Yeah, I do prefer being behind the scenes. As I said, like, there is a thrill involved with being on stage that is kind of unlike any other experience. But you're a tool, like, when you're on stage. You're a tool for the directors and the production team to tell the story that they're telling. Mm-hmm. Now, every director will allow you to partake in that storytelling, but in the end, it's not your choice. You got to do what they tell you to do. And there's a beautiful thing involved in doing that, a process and all that stuff. But being able to help craft the story, and for me, it's less about being a director, although I do enjoy directing. Producing the show and being able to pull everything together for the artistic talents I feel is like the highest level of being able to craft the story. Mm-hmm. Even though you're not in the fine details of every moment, being able to bring the talent together and the resources together, the finances together, and all that stuff is really where I enjoy it the most. That's what I enjoy the most in terms of doing theatrical productions.
Yeah, it's kind of like the puppet master, just having everything in balance.
Yes, but way less evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know. Right. Maybe it's on par with that.
So I was watching a YouTube video about the Goodness Project, where you're talking about where the Downtown Theatre Project came about, and all of that sort of stuff. But I wanted you to kind of touch on that again as how that kind of came about, because we've talked about it a little bit.
Sure, yeah. First, Ben Wallace and Semperwood, thank you very much for doing the Goodness Project. That was a great little piece of some downtown interest, or some golf interest. The Downtown Theatre Project. So Tom Brown, who is one of the 4 founding members of the Making Box, I met him through ed video and doing short filmmaking, and so him and I essentially became a pair that we would work together. He would do all the camera operating and director of photography for these short films that I would write and direct, and so we became very close, and pretty much everything I know about filmmaking now he taught me, because I came into it completely new. And so then I got involved in theater and started doing more theater. And we had talked about doing some small-scale theater in the space that they had. They used to be in the Baker Street, the Scientology building.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they were looking for a new space to get out and actually have their own space. And so the discussions started happening, if they couldn't program the entire year, they would want somebody else in there doing some programming to help financially at least to pay for the space, and so the discussions went on, and they were looking for a place, and then basically over 2 years before they got the space, they blew up and became this massive thing, and they didn't need us anymore.
It got pretty big.
Yeah, so they really didn't need us in their space anymore, but because they are the most beautiful people here in Guelph, they carved out some space for us in their schedule, and they allow us in there for 3 weeks a year, 3 or 4 weeks a year, and that's where the Downtown Theatre Project does their shows. And basically, if it wasn't for the Making Box, the Downtown Theatre Project wouldn't even exist. It was them saying, hey, we have a spot, do you want to do something? And so we created something to fill that spot.
And that's great, and that's one thing with Guelph community and people like that, where they're so accepting and just like, yeah, let's do it together instead of doing it separately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it worked out. So Tim Clark, who you mentioned, is one of the Downtown Theatre Project foursome, and my wife Jen, and Trevor, who I met through Calendar Girls. And it ends up that Tom Brown is Tim Clark's brother-in-law as well. So
Small world.
Guelph.
It's just so Guelph. So do you feel, you kind of started, you talked about the collaborations that you've done with the Downtown Theatre Project. Do you feel you kind of started out of necessity to sort of fill a gap that may have been needed to be filled in the Guelph theatre community?
Yeah. Like Guelph has a strong theater community. We got Guelph Little Theater, who has their own space out on Morris, out York Street. Royal City Music Productions, who do their shows at the Riverrun Center, and they do 2 large-scale musicals every year. And then there's lots of little groups that pop up. What is it? Is it Penny and Pound Theaters? What are they called?
I think so.
There's a group out of Guelph that travels the country with their kids shows. There's all this amazing theatrical stuff going on. We probably aren't as connected as we should, as I try and remember the names of these companies. Obviously, we're not as connected as we should be, or maybe it's just me. But yeah, there is a lot of things going on. But there was nothing of this sort. And this came from us going to, there's a lot of great theater companies out of Toronto. And obviously, when you have 3 million people within a subway ride, you can do a lot more.
Yeah.
But so we kind of saw some of the things that were going on with Soul Pepper and Passe Murau, and we thought that can happen in Guelph, albeit to a smaller scale, but that can happen. And so, yeah, we decided, we basically scoured scripts like crazy. I've got on my bedside table, I probably have 100 scripts in a pile that I need to read. And so it's all about, our mandate is, because the Making Box space is so intimate, there's only 40 seats. The front row the stage is a 9-inch riser, and the front row, you can rest your feet on it. We don't like that because the actors would trip, but it's that intimate. And so what we want shows that if you were in the living room with these people watching this happen, it would make you really uncomfortable, because that's where you are. You're essentially in the living room with these people while this stuff is going on. And so we're picking kind of heavier themes and obviously small casts, but where we can focus on the acting talent and keep the production minimal and it seems to be working right now. We're selling out all of our runs, and
That's great.
yeah, so the appetite was obviously here. We thought we were sure that there was an appetite for it, but it's proven to be correct.
Well, it's great to be able to have another stage to kind of showcase those more intimate shows or things that you couldn't really do on maybe a larger scale or anything like that. So
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about any upcoming projects you're working on with the Downtown Theatre Project at all, or?
Yeah, so we were just about to stage the last 5 years. It was going to be our first musical
Nice.
in the making box. And so it's the last 5 years is a beautiful story. It's just a male and a female, and it's their relationship story. And it's the greatest concept. She starts the play off finding out that they've just broken up. And he starts the play off where they've just met. And so then their timelines go in reverse, and they only have one scene together, and it's right in the middle. It's when they get married, but they cross, so they're never in any scenes together except for that one. And her last scene is when they just met, and her first scene is when they just broke up. So
That's really cool.
yeah, it's this amazing concept. And so we have a 3-piece band that's going to be live in the space with us, and 2 performers. Who knows if this is all going to happen at any point, but yeah.
I know. Keep
So,
faith.
so if we aren't able to do that in a space, then yeah, I think we're just starting to have discussions about maybe there's another way for us to do this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if it's not that show, then it'll be something else. We're gonna find a way to have a presence online. We keep doing like silly trivia things and win a T-shirt and stuff like that.
I've
But
been seeing a lot of those.
that can only last for so long.
A lot of collaborative videos with everyone. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very, very active with that.
Yeah.
So I guess also in that video we'd touched a little bit about the Fringe Festival. So Fringe, I think, I've always been very fascinated with it because it's just stuff that's on the outside or on the outskirts of what regular entertainment is, I guess, for people. But can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with that festival, or what you're talking to them about?
Yeah, sure. So when the Fringe first came to town, the guy who was running it, Kevin, he kind of reached out to the community, and a bunch of us met with him. And at the time, we were just thinking about getting the Downtown Theatre Project going, and so it wasn't quite the right time for us to get involved. But he had lots of people helping him out, and so it ran for 3 years, and then he needed to step back from it. And so as soon as we heard that was happening, and now we were established and we understood how to kind of produce this kind of thing, we reached out to him, and he was happy to have us take it over. Yeah, the Fringe is you're right. It's a great concept in that the performances are selected entirely by lottery. So we don't get to decide what style of theater we want or style of performances we want. Like, it could be a guy sitting on a box for an hour. That could be it.
That's the performance.
That's the performance. If that's, good luck with that one. But we don't look at, we just put them all in a hat. We pull out 20 shows, and that's what it is. And so that's one of the mandates of Fringe, if you want to be a Fringe festival. The other is that all the money that comes through the door for ticket prices goes directly to the artists. So the artists pay a fee to be a part of it, and that funds the entire festival. And then they get every dollar that comes through the door. So it's a way for artists to kind of make their way based on the quality of their show.
Yeah, and that's it's a good initiative to kind of have that the sort of like I guess it's similar to a pay to play, but a little bit different because you are getting the ticket sales coming back in. Because I know we talked to them a little bit because in our 2016 festival we were kind of talking about incorporating more Fringe elements, and I think that was the year we had Orbacks on and just elements like that. So I don't know if we really incorporated as much as we could have, but it's very interesting kind of having that theater element of the Fringe.
Yeah, and the Fringe Festival in previous years was over on Essex Street. It was on the Black Heritage.
Right. Yeah.
And
Heritage Hall.
Silence. Yeah, Heritage Hall and Silence. And so we are planning to get back there, but for our first year, just for visibility's sake, we had the spaces we booked. So we had Red Brick and the Making Box and 10C. So we had everything kind of so you could see every other show, just to get it more established. Having a presence around a lot of people, because it's hard to get word out to people who aren't connected, right? That's one of the problems with this new social media world. It's like, if you're already connected to that type of thing, you're going to hear a lot about it.
Yeah,
but if you're not connected, there's no way for you to hear about it.
Yeah.
If it's not in your algorithm.
Yeah, you really had to throw it in people's faces.
Yeah. So you almost have to be out on the street handing out leaflets. You know, we're back to the
guerrilla tactics.
The 80s. Yeah, exactly.
So you're talking a little bit about a potential for a future Fringe festival. Now, I think before it was hosted in October, was it before? Or
yeah, back in the day it was October.
Yeah.
When we took it over, we decided to move it into the summer. So we're always going to be the weekend after the August long weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did some one little festival then just back in August.
No.
Like a year ago, was it?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
I was trying to think when the last
we tried one and COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
That was okay.
No, there was a year off with no Fringe festival the year prior. And so, yeah, this was going to be our first.
Okay, I was trying to think of the timeline of how this is all kind of lining up.
Yeah, I know. It's all a mess now. Yeah. You can't remember anything.
What day is it even?
Yeah.
Connected to the theater a little bit. I was seeing online, we kind of talked a bit about the videos that members of the theater community were doing. Now, I saw Bad Janet. Is that sort of one of the theater projects, or that kind of come up as just a fun thing to do with everyone?
So those were done by friends of ours, Christian and Chantel. And so something through Tim Clark is that, so he does these musical murder mystery shows at the Elora Raceway. And so basically we get up and pretend to be all the members of the Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger dies halfway through the show, and everyone there, it's dinner theater, everyone there has to pick which of the other members killed Mick Jagger. And so we have a blast doing those, and Christian does those with us. And so Christian and Chantel did this thing where they put out a video of them performing a song every day for 100 days. And so every now and then they would do one where they wanted a full band or other singers or other musicians. And so they reached out to us, and we did. And this was like early. This was back when it was like lockdown, like everybody was staying home.
Back in March.
Yeah. And so, man, was it needed? Yeah. It was like we were all drowning. Like we had, especially for the artistic community who's used to being on projects and the next thing coming up, and and here we are with nothing to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is seeing all those extroverts all of a sudden just having nothing.
Yeah. You've met Tim Clark, though, right?
Yeah.
Extrovert?
Yeah. Maybe not him so much, but I feel there's a lot of personalities, and just kind of watching those videos, you can kind of see who is more out front of the camera and who's more wants to stay behind and do whatever. But
yeah, no, it was. It was a wonderful thing that we were able to connect with.
Yeah. And are those still going? You're still kind of randomly putting some of those together here and there?
We've had a couple phone calls, Zoom calls talking about it, but there hasn't been one in a while. No, there hasn't been one in a while.
Okay. Because it was definitely, I definitely watched a couple of those, and it brightened my day a couple of times, and I was just like, okay, it's good seeing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the community members too that are a part of it, like, because they're all mostly theater and all that sort of stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's is there anything else you wanted to touch on a little bit about the Downtown Theater Project, or?
Yeah, I would say we're always looking for new people, so just stay home for now. But at some point, when we get back and going, if being involved in the theatrical arts is something you want to do as a hobby, we're always looking for people. So don't be shy. And something's going to happen online if we can't get back into the theater. So stay tuned. We're gonna, something's going to pop up at some point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit as well because amidst everything that's been going on, obviously within the city as well, there was this large debate recently over the library being built, and I saw that you were very much an advocate for having that built and making sure that you were posting about it and all of that. So I just wanted, I know from a community member and where's the importance for that, and why were you advocating so hard for that project in particular?
Well, we live downtown, and so that's our library. And no offense to that building, but it's falling apart. It really is. And now, and everybody knows that. Like, the entire argument wasn't about that. Everybody on council knew that we needed a new library. Sorry, everybody except Bob Bell. What's up with Bob Bell? Why is everybody like, we need a new library, and Bob Bell's like, no. So the argument wasn't about that. It was whether or not we are going to build this library to the specs that was given to us by these consultants that the council voted to hire. So we had these professional people who know things about libraries, which I don't know. And they came and said, here's your options, and we picked the smallest of those options and said, okay, that's the one we're going to build. Now, I get it. It came with a tax levy, which is money that taxpayers have to pay. I'm a taxpayer. I get it. You know, some things are worth sucking up and paying, some things are not, and that's where the debate happens, right? And you know, everybody can sit on whatever side of that they want, and there's no right or wrong. We just got to pick a side, right? But for me, it's when we have a whole bunch of people in this debate, me included, talking about things we're not educated in, we don't know, you know, all we can do is turn to the experts, right? And so when the experts are telling us to do something, they're not making stuff up, right? They're telling us to do this for a pretty solid reason. Now, we have the way our government works right now, we have 13 people who can sit in a room and decide to go against the experts, and that's the system we got, and we got to stick to it. But really what I was trying to do was just steer the conversation towards listening to the experts, and it's a bizarre system, right? We got all these amazing people who work for the city who have gone to, you know, they have their PhDs and all this stuff and all of these like massive levels of education in all these subjects. And then they will make all these calls on these things, and it'll go to council, and like a dog groomer will vote it down, you know? Yeah. And no offense to dog groomers, but you know, it's just interesting. And so I like to, when things seem to be going awry, I like to chime in. And sometimes I chime in way more than I should chime in. But
it's good to have a little bit of reason, though. And I think it's important for the discussion of how these things work, right? You've got to keep people accountable for their jobs. And I feel with this project in particular, it was a very long time coming. And the longer you put it off, the more money you're going to spend ultimately.
And the fact that it was a $20 million library not that long ago, and these conversations keep happening and keep pushing it along. And you know, the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic doesn't make the conversation any easier. But
no, but I feel not to keep on going about the library too much, but I guess
I want to talk about the library.
I feel it's one of those things that it has so many systems that can be utilized for the community, not only for you know, like the education side of it, but also for the arts, and especially you know, being so involved in the arts, a building or a hub or a place just like this one for music and entertainment. It's important to have those spaces where you can do more than just, oh, I'm here to check out a book.
100%, yeah. Like, you know, they don't have the final designs out for it, but when they were showing it on their Zoom call when they unveiled the plans, you know, there's the kids area and there's a performance space there, and so you know, that was needed, right? And so now we have this great little performance space in the library. There's a hall that's accessible from the outside, so when the library's not open, you can still use this performance. You could have performances in that space. So having community spaces for any type of performance or theatrical or live music is needed. It's needed, you know? And
most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, I was advocating for the library way before I saw the design, and then when I saw the design, I was like, all right, I messaged all my theater friends. I was like, call your counselor. There's a performance space.
Just downtown, right there.
Yeah, amazing, right?
What everyone's always calling for. They want more spaces.
And like, because I use the library all the time, right? My kids go there. books and playing and the programming. And so we go through the library. And so I get it in the conversation. It's, get a Kindle, or, don't we have Google now? Or even on the other side, it's like, I use my library. Look, here's my library card. Well, this discussion is not just about us and our individual uses of these things. There's a lot of people out there who use the space who aren't having their voice heard in these conversations. And if you just go to the library, it is evident how I don't know what I want to say, but like there's just not enough stuff there for all these people to line up for the computers. It's just the bathroom's broken down most of the time, And
they say healthcare cuts and education cuts don't affect us, right?
Exactly, right, yeah. So I don't know, this kind of front of the line expenditures seem like no-brainers to me. Spend money to keep people educated, to keep them out of the cold, to keep them involved in the community, and then you're going to see a lot less reason or need to spend money down the line with hospitals and police and the court systems. It's just like, I think the argument's been had a million times about this, and everybody knows the answer. It's just we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, and I think it's been touched upon on a few other conversations we've had here of just the community can help itself if we just put a little bit into it, right? If we're all helping each other or lending a hand and whatever else like that. So projects like this, I think, are more in the investment for the future, which obviously is hard to see in the here and now when everything's as hard as it is. But I think it's definitely an interesting conversation, and thanks for advocating for it all the time. It was great to see it. It inspired me to write my counselors as well and all that. So
awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Go libraries.
So thank you, Paul, for coming out. This was a great little chat. It was great to be able to catch up with you. It's been, I don't think we've ever really had a sit down necessarily, but it's really great to get to know you a little bit more about your projects and endeavors. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And if you want to do one of these with Nick Weaver, I'll sit over there and ask you all the questions.
Switch the roles. Well, thanks again. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we have the great Orbax joining us. We're not sure if he's going to do a performance, but maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great one. Thanks for joining us. Bye now.